Well, hey, before we get started with this amazing episode, please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Welcome
Great.
to an episode of Successfully Unsuccessful. I'm your host, Josh Dittrich, and today, physically in the house, is Mike Kerrison, a Minnesota native, author, speaker, and sales trainer, husband, father, grandfather of 10 kids now, grandkids, and a founder of multiple companies who's also exited multiple companies. I'm excited to talk with him about really the journey he had building a successful business, but the recognition around his failures and challenges in life and his unsuccess. Mm-hmm. So as we dive in today, thanks for being here, Mike. I want to just kick it off and say, man, you've had a run. 73 years old, is that right?
71.
71. See,
but
there I added.
Counting?
We don't need to be
no,
adding more than
I got a lot more yesterdays than I do tomorrow. So let's not push this.
So as I understand it, you did go to college, and through that journey, you jumped right into a sales career at IBM. What did your perspective of success look like then, and what gave you that hunger to go out and make it?
I had a coach mentor in my college years, and that was my brother-in-law, Alex Strazzanti. Alex died in 1986 from cancer, but he was the guy who saw what I was going through. You know, when my dad died, I was not quite 15. Mom and I were broke. Mom remarried. She moved to New York City, to Queens.
Wow.
She needed to get some level of security. She wanted me to go with her. I said no. And so I lived with my grandmother in high school for a year, and then I lived with Alex and Lindsay, my sister and my brother-in-law.
So what year would that have been? Or not year, but age?
69, 70, and I would have been 16 and 17 years old.
Grandma, and then
And then my sister, Lindsay, and her husband, Alex.
Okay.
Who was my
brother-in-law.
So my senior year, I had him as kind of coach, best friend, mentor, and he saw my potential. He saw things that I probably didn't see in myself at the time. And then I went to college. I played some baseball, and thank God, because I probably wouldn't have had a nickel in my pocket then either. But I got through college at Ohio University, and Alex kept very close to me.
Really?
Yeah. And so during the holidays, I'd be back at their place, and he was raising his own family, and he was at that time a salesman, a very accomplished, successful salesman with IBM.
Really? Oh, wow.
And he went on to be a marketing manager, moved to Chicago. And that was right around the time that I was graduating from college. And so I'll never forget it. He called me, the phone rang, and I went downstairs at the Sigma Chi house and answered the telephone, payphone in those days. And there he was. And he said, "You're not going to believe it." But he says, "I think we got something here. Lynn Lynch, I just took on this new job. I've been talking about you. Lynn Lynch wants to meet you. So I can't do much more than open the door, but you're a smart kid, and I think you'll do a good job. Just come out here and tell your story."
Oh my gosh.
So I got on an airplane in March, and I went out and interviewed at the General Systems Division of IBM, and they were on a big move to hire. It was the right time, right place.
Wow.
And he hired me. Lynn Lynch said, you're exactly what we're looking for. We need young, smart, hard chargers, and the fact that you've been broke most of your life is a good thing. We're going to see what we can do about that.
You know what, though? So, those are the kind of situations where they look at it and go, "There's a kid who has more to lose. Probably he's going to come here and work hard. He has less to lose. He's going to come here and show up and put it all in, right?"
Yeah, and you're at an age where I just watched Alex. I just saw the blue suit and the beautiful 40-pound brogues that he wore around, and the white Oxford cloth shirts and the perfect striped ties. And I thought, man, I want to be that. I want to do that.
Unbelievable.
And so it was very inspiring. And when I showed up, I killed it. I mean, I just crushed it. It was like, I will not be a loser here. I've felt like one for too long. This is kind of my chance, So I went hard at it, and I had a heck of a start. I was Rookie of the Year that year in the region, and I was 212% of quota my first year on quota. But The one thing that I learned from IBM that stayed with me my entire career is still with me today, and still preach it everywhere I go with my clients today, and that is really understanding how to sell.
Mm.
And there is such a misconception on that, and it's so misunderstood, and it's taught and trained so poorly everywhere I go. But IBM had it, got it, and they built one of the greatest organizations on the planet because they knew how to appeal to a customer. And they did it with a unique structure that was simple, repeatable, logical, and they trained you for a year before you got a territory. And only if you passed sales school, which was 70% of your total annual grade, which was 3 weeks of solid role play, all videoed and all graded.
Oh my goodness.
And if you flunked sales school, you didn't get a territory.
You're out.
You had a job, but you were an administrator, or operations, or
support role of something. Yeah.
But you were not going to get a patch.
No kidding.
And they had you believing beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is your patch. This is where you make your living. You're the president of this patch. Go run it.
Wow.
And so there was this entrepreneurial component built right into it from the start.
How big were they then when you started?
26 billion.
Is that so? Still, so they had been putting it together. And
oh yeah,
how many agents or sales guys did they have that are running territories?
There were 2,000 sales reps in the general systems division by the time I left, but I was one of the early guys, the kind of the pioneer branch offices.
First 20, first 100.
I think our branch had 72 total people, and out of that, I think there were probably 20 sales reps.
Wow!
And I had 5 zip codes in Chicago, right around the airport.
That was your whole market?
That was my world. I made my living there.
And never took on more territories or moved on in leadership, or just killing it in sales?
I just killed it in sales for 4.5 years.
My goodness.
And my income went up 40-50% a year for every one of those years. I mean, they hired me for $1,000 a month. I thought I was rich.
Then, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah,
I mean, by the time I paid my rent and my car payment and, had a couple of beers on Friday night with my friends, I had $365 left over.
Man.
I mean, I was wealthy.
No kidding.
Yeah. And
you could stash it away or whatever.
I didn't even know what to do with it. I just kind of let it lay there. I bought a suit once in a while and shined my shoes. I was big on my shoes. I shine it. Any salesman walks in, you see my shoes?
I like it. You got to have good shoes.
You got to have good shoes.
You're on your feet all day, especially.
It's just a way of kind of getting ready for the day.
So 4.5 years, and through that, exceeding your quota, continue to grow and develop as a salesperson. But
I hate to brag about it, but it just agreed with me.
Yeah.
So Rookie of the Year was kind of a heady thing. They give you a plaque and you run up on stage and you feel like a big shot. I'm 22 years old and probably went to my head a little bit, but I built a lot of competence and confidence around that, which was kind of unbridled in those days. And you probably look silly to an adult, but at the time it looked good to me. And then I was a new account leader. So I sold 31 new accounts.
So the whole model there was actually really in the trenches of new biz and like
all
cold calling. Business. Was it outside sales or inside?
Well, it was all outside when I started, literally knocking on doors.
Yeah.
Door to door, standing in vestibules, talking to CEOs.
Well, that's the hardest way to learn. I mean, wow.
Well, we were fearless.
Wow.
We were ready.
I bet that made you, like you said, highly confident, but
we knew what we were talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, in 1970, nobody knew anything about mid-size computers. Mm-hmm. And then we walked in and we had been trained for a year on this stuff. I mean, they gave us an accounting degree, a computer science degree, a business process degree, and a sales degree in 1 year. Gee, I mean, they were like mini masters on all four of those.
So you're selling IBM computers with what, like a 286, 386 at that time? No way before that?
PC wasn't even around.
PC.
This was an IBM System 32. I went on quota March 1st and April 1st, perfect timing. The IBM System 32 was announced, which was a 9 megabyte hard drive.
Oh my gosh.
An 80 character per second bi-directional printer. I used to laugh and think, how does it print backwards? But it did. It had a keyboard and a little tiny screen that was basically 2 mirrors that were shaped so that they looked like a screen. What it really wasn't. It was just a little just a ridiculous box. And then they wrapped the box around it to make it look like a desk.
Right.
$60,000.
Wow.
To buy one of those.
And that would be going into a business at that point? Or
yeah. So my territory was small industrial parks with 20, 30, 40, $50 million job shops that were primarily automotive, building specialized parts. And I learned manufacturing. I walked thousands of manufacturing floors. I talked to CEOs that were 45, 50, 60 years old, sometimes founded by their fathers and grandfathers.
Multi-generation.
And and these were days when you had an accounts payable team of 14 over here, and you had an accounts receivable invoicing team of 16 over there. And I would walk in with the new computer, and they all be staring at me and go, oh, crap, I'm going to lose my job. Can you see it? And so you really had to know business, manufacturing, business applications, operations, the core philosophy of the team. You had to know how to ask world-class questions, and you had to convince a leader of these small businesses back in the 70s that you need to disrupt and dismantle all of your old operations and put this computer in, and we're going to change your world. And we did.
I mean,
and it worked.
But the training and what IBM knew they had and what they prepared you for, the revolution, the change, it was built into you to eat, sleep, and breathe that, but you're solving problems. You're walking in and you're seeing this, you already know what the end-to-end opportunity that this would do for the organization, replacing people, in some ways.
We had to know at age 25 how to calculate return on investment for someone's P&L and balance sheet, and show them how the time, energy, and money that they would invest would reverse their business processes. So here's how you're doing it today. Here's how you're going to do it and here's the gap, and here's the savings that you're going to receive. That had to be calculated. So when
you're spending $60,000 at that time,
that's a lot of money.
Yeah, no, so that's great. So this journey taught you so much. You're connecting with guys that have probably a whole nother level of experience that you're encountering. But what gave you then the confidence to take that leap and to move into your own thing and really launch? What was it? Computer Options Incorporated.
Yeah, in the late 70s, the computer leasing industry started.
Okay.
And there was a company called Comdisco out of Chicago, and another company called ITEL, which was out of San Francisco. And these were two big IBM leasing companies, mainframes, 360s, 370s, and all that stuff. And it grew like a weed. In fact, ITEL was aspiring to be $1 billion company in its first 10 years. Digital was the only one that had done it. Ken Olson's company, but they made it in 11. But here's the thing. They were picking off IBMers. They were going branch to branch across the United States. And they were anybody that was number 1, 2, or 3 in a branch, they wanted to talk to them. And I was always in the top 3. And I had built up a reputation of being a performer. So they called, and I answered the call, and my buddies, a couple of my buddies had already joined. And so I flew out to San Francisco, and I interviewed, and Pete Redfield, who was the founder of that company, hired me on the spot. And so I left, and I moved my family from Chicago. I had a little boy at the time, 2 car payments, a house payment. They bought my house, filled up a truck, and moved me to Minneapolis, and I've been here ever since. So I'm from Cleveland by way of Chicago.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. Yeah. So Ohio, that explains the university there, and then into Chicago, and then into...
And then Minneapolis, which is where, the ITEL experience started. Well, after a year and a half of learning how the leasing business worked, which is very complicated, we were writing very sophisticated 7-year tax leverage leases where you had investor money and equity and debt that was compounded and put together to do $6-7 million transactions. And I was 26, 27. So I learned how to communicate effectively with some senior leadership folks. And what I recognize is they put their pants on just like me. They're more experienced. They got a lot more, responsibility, but there's a bunch of stuff they don't know. And I can bring some value to that. And it had nothing to do with my age. It had to do with the value I was bringing.
Right.
So anyway, that I made a bunch of money doing that. But then ITEL got blown out of the saddle. IBM announced the IBM 4300 mini mainframe, which was 60 cents on the dollar versus the 370 and about 40% faster.
Wow.
And it completely wiped out all the residual values on ITEL's balance sheet.
Of
which
course.
were unrecognized residuals. They lost $250 million in a day.
Oh my gosh. So the value of this equipment now depreciated overnight
To zero.
To nothing because it's outdated, too slow, too much money.
Boom, boom.
Paperweights.
Yep. And then IBM Credit Corporation was started, so they actually started
bringing their own money in.
Yeah. And then the leasing industry just went kapoof. But so I'm out of a job. I hung on to my job. I actually didn't get fired on the spot kind of thing. I actually had a great boss. He says, look, you got about 90 days to figure out what you're going to do.
Little runway, yep.
So, but it's coming for all of us. So anyway, I looked around and I tried to find some other things to do. And I thought, you know what? I know how to do leasing. I know computers. I've got 70 customers of my own in Chicago. I wonder if I could buy and sell between them. So I just picked up the phone and started dialing and smiling and dialing and, just having conversations because I knew these people. And a miracle happened because I found the Bell and Howell Mamiya Camera Company needed an IBM System 3 Model 15D. It's about a $500,000 list price. And I found a company called CMI out of Detroit, which was a dealer. They had one in inventory. And it was almost feature for feature. And I could buy it for $150,000. So I called Gary, who had been my customer, and I said, Gary, I'm not exactly sure how this is coming together, but I think I can probably get you machines somewhere in the neighborhood of about $300,000, $200,000 under IBM list. He says, you're kidding me. I said, no, I'm not. I think we can do this. It'll be guaranteed for maintenance. I think it's part for part as a match. What color do you want? I mean, I can probably change the color for you.
Oh my gosh.
But I'll arrange the install. I'll arrange freight. I don't really know how to do it, but I'm sure we can figure it out. Would you be willing to take the risk and do this? He says, yeah, I trust you, Mike. Let's do it. For $200,000, it's worth it.
Wow. So
I made $150,000 on one deal.
You just brokered a piece of used equipment, or was that new? Dealer was new?
It was used equipment. And IBM refurbed it, staged it, tested, because under the 1956 consent decree, they had to do that, provide those supports. Yep. Mm-hmm. And they did. And so I, on that one deal, learned all the business operations for brokering used equipment. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. Now, I made a lot of money on it by accident, by God's grace. And so that was 3 times more than I'd ever made. My biggest W-2 was $56,000.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I made this on a deal,
And while you're on the way out from the organization that's letting you go because they got crushed.
Well, I was off the payroll at that point, but okay. They did get crushed. And so I thought, well, shoot, maybe you can't do it on mainframes, but maybe there's a leasing industry and a brokerage industry on mid-range. Mm. So sure enough, I started looking around and I found one other company out in the West Coast doing exactly what I was doing. His name was Cass Marketing, was the name of the company, Bob Cass. He said, come on out. He said, we can work this thing together. And so then there were 4 other companies, Frontier Computer down in Texas, and there were a couple more bubbling around. I can't remember the names of them anymore, but the 5 of us formed an association.
Oh, cool. An alliance of sorts, huh?
Well, yeah, we needed each other.
Yeah.
This one could refurb, this one could test. I'll share my freight resources. Right. We coached and supported each other. And I learned that, holy crap, the way to get ahead in life is to help someone else.
Isn't that right?
And they'll help you.
Wow.
And so this 5 of us became an industry. And by the time I got out of the computer hardware business, there were 300 companies.
Of course.
It went berserk. So right time, right place, right circumstances, and a ton of luck and a lot of hard work and willingness to learn was what I fell into it. I didn't go out and manifest it. Right. I just started working, and then stuff showed up. And after 5 years, so then the next biggie was the Inc. 500. I said, we got to make that Inc. 500, man. That thing.
So at this point, though, you're still an independent company partnered with these groups? Or did you ever consolidate?
I broke off and formed a company called Computer Options in January 1980.
Okay.
And that's exactly where that first transaction landed.
I see.
In my company.
I see.
And I was already out the door and off the payroll and desperate for a job. And this thing showed up. So it was this insane amount.
At the time, though, did you process it? And I think we've briefly took this off subject, off topic, and not topic, off of this chat in another string around the areas of you making that happen versus what you just described being the circumstances that you were blessed in, the opportunities you were blessed with.
Oh, I think their blessings were throughout all of it.
Yeah. But recognizing that then, was that clear?
I didn't recognize it then. It was all about me then. I'm the smartest guy on the planet. I've got this. And it worked. And then I was bringing others into the company. I was teaching them how to do it. And the Computer Dealer and Lessor Association began to grow. I became the president of that association. I was well known. You're in your 30s now. You really think you got it figured out, man. And if you get too much money too fast at a young age,
you're not prepared for it. I mean,
I wasn't at all, So it was a service, but a disservice. So, and then you get married, your kids come, the pressures mount. You start to make mistakes. We got to 25 million in 5 years, but the 3 years that followed that, years 6, 7, and 8, almost lost all of it.
Wow.
In fact, technically bankrupt. So and it was through the grace of God and a lot of hard work and a lot of fear and a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of 16, 17-hour days to bail that out. And that's a whole other podcast, but I was able to recover and get back in it, but it was a dramatic shift into the software business versus the hardware business, which was like going to the moon.
Yeah, right. But in one way, it's right hand, left hand. But they are completely different animals.
Completely.
And so your revenue and business model changed
completely,
and still kept the name, but pivoted.
Well, we did keep the name. We were doing business as SSA North Central, even though it was Computer Options, which had sustained us for all those years. But SSA, we were always a sales and marketing company. We were never a manufacturer of anything. Right. So we represented and brokered computers. And now we were representing and selling and installing and servicing someone else's software. And
so like a service provider in this example?
Yeah. We were an affiliate.
Yeah.
We were the second affiliate. The total number of affiliates was 72 by the time they matured. But we learned how to do it. And now we went from transactional business that you could sell in 2 weeks with a $150,000 price tag to a 1 year long-term high and wide selling solution where you're touching every part of an organization to sell an ERP solution, kind of like SAP or Oracle.
Oh, for sure. What were you selling for software then?
It's called Beepix.
Okay. It was an ERP?
It was an ERP system and ran on a mid-range computer. So it fit right into our world.
Wow.
It fit right into our customer base.
Right. The manufacturing side, right? And using inventory and finance and all of those pieces. Wow.
So it wasn't a giant leap, but it was a struggle to pull all the employees through that knothole.
So through that, clearly, you must have seen the hardware landscape change practically overnight to get to that point where you had to file for bankruptcy.
Yeah, well, we didn't, but we should have. Technically, we were bankrupt, but the bank,
I see.
The bank basically worked with me.
Yeah,
and
keep the lights on best they could.
Well, they saw a way out too, and they thought, we're not gonna ruin this company. We're gonna work with this company, but it was a workout program. Make no mistake.
Wow,
that's a humiliating experience,
but
a humbling one.
Recovering came out of that into later on an exit, right?
Yeah. Well, the software business flourished. We learned how to do it. We became one of the leading producers for SSA. We put in close to 250 systems in 5 years. That's a lot of software.
Wow.
Yeah. And what we learned was for every $1 of software, we could sell $3 of services, whether it be training services or application development services or integration services or whatever. So we got very good on the service side. So then I went to my third business, which was North Central Consulting. So we went SSA North Central, and then I flipped another company called called North Central Consulting, and that was an application development IT technology services organization. And then Y2K hit, and the world was going to end unless you had your 4-digit dates.
Right.
So everybody said, well, let's just put in brand new software and we'll start from scratch and we'll throw everything out, which was crazy because the world did not end. But the technology business it skyrocketed. And so we went from, 50 consultants, 40, 50 consultants that were doing well and we were making money to 300.
Oh my goodness.
In 5 years. And then we sold because I saw the boom coming. I saw the .com before it hit. I knew it was coming. I said, this can't last.
Oh my gosh.
The year 2000 is going to hit. This is going to be fine. And what are we going to do with all these people? The party is over, Oh. So I looked for a buyer, and I found Whitman Hart out of Chicago, which was a $500 million IT consulting company consolidating. And I called Bob, and he was the CEO, founder, and we got along well. He said, I like your company. I'm trying to get in Minneapolis. You seem to own it. I can't get in. So
he had been trying, and that was a market he couldn't.
Yeah, he couldn't crack it. We had it. We just did a great job there. So we weren't huge. We're, probably aspiring to be about $25 million in sales at that point in time. But of course, it's high EBITDA, in that market versus brokerage is low EBITDA. So he bought us. And that was like, holy crap. That's a big pile of money. Now what do I do? So 2 years of sitting around. Were there
previous exits, or this all kind of culminated to one?
Well, actually, I sold the software company back to SSA.
Oh, okay.
Because they had released a new package of software, which was based upon all new, brand new technologies that was supposed to run seamlessly on client server back in the PC days when Cisco was selling servers then. So that was a big shift. And then the new software was to take advantage of client server as opposed to mid-range computers. Big change. Well, didn't work. So I'm an affiliate selling some stuff that I know doesn't work.
I see.
So my conscience got the better of me, and I said, I went to Chicago. I sat down. I said, can't do this. You're going to have to take us out. So they did. And they gave me some stock in exchange for the company, and it was a lot of money, but it was unregistered stock, which means you can't sell it till it's registered. Oh, don't worry about it. 6 weeks, it'll be registered. Well, I didn't have any experience with this, and that was very naive at the time, and I didn't get good coaching. So I ended up with a pile of unregistered stock that went from $25 a share to $3 a share in 6 months by the time it got registered.
Oh my.
Because they had booked about $30-some million worth of business that was fictitious in the Cayman Islands or something.
To bolster their value?
To bolster their valuation because they weren't hitting their numbers on a certain quarter. And the reason they weren't hitting their numbers because the software didn't work and the thing exploded, went to chapter 7.
Oh.
I got out at $3 a share, which was merely a fraction of what I sold the business for. And it was, suck it up, get back in the race, try again.
Didn't go to zero. Did you have that mindset then that it was better than nothing, or was it just an emotion thing?
I was so fractured and beat up and scared. It was back to survival mode. But we did survive it. And I think that's what I've learned is that the stuff that builds businesses, whether as an entrepreneur working out of your basement with a typewriter or whether you're flipping it into some new arena, the stuff that got you there the first time can be repurposed.
Yeah.
You just keep doing it.
100%.
And you don't lose that. In fact, but what you gain is a heck of a lot of experience.
Yeah, unbelievable, right?
Going to the next realm.
So do you think along the way, what areas did pride really start to manifest through this journey? And obviously with the ups and downs, the downs are more humbling, but when you had, especially the larger exit, figuring out, what was next and where was your relationship with God and your family like through this journey of building these businesses? Because that entire stint then was what, from the 80s to...
Yeah, I think I would say that I kind of abandoned my faith during the money years. Um, you get so caught up in it. You realize, oh boy, I got a lot of money. I'm driving the nicer car. I'm living in a bigger house. I've got more than the next guy. Must be me. And then you begin to internalize and really believe that's true. And somehow there's this voice inside that says, no, you're wrong, pal. And that's the Holy Spirit kind of sitting there waiting for you to fall on your butt, which you eventually do. So I think that when I look at the downs and the ups were all about me, and the downs were when I raced to God. And so the biggest change today is when I'm up, I am so grateful. I am so humbled. I am so immune to my own BS.
Yeah.
And I recognize that every single thing that I've ever gotten, whether it's knowledge or experience, or friendships, or relationships, or money, or talent, or whatever it is, they're all gifts. Every single bit of it.
As a steward, man, it's easy to forget that specific example, that everything we have is from him. It's his anyway, and he blessed you uniquely with it, and so I've had to come full circle on this, and part of the journey to the next era is really understanding that for much is given, much is expected. And when he's given that to you and you use it to glorify him, he continues to bless you. But
he does.
When it becomes about you, and eventually, where for you though did the transition happen of the falling on your face to realize, what I have is actually his? Because that doesn't just happen on a wake up call.
No, it doesn't. It's a journey. I don't think that journey ever ends.
Ongoing.
And I think there's consistent need for renewal.
Yeah.
So today I'm a big prayer. I don't do prayers real well. I'm not kind of an Our Father, Hail Mary kind of a guy.
You grew up doing them, right?
I did them. Yeah, I did them. I got the rosary beads to prove it. But I just find that I can talk to God.
Yeah.
And some days I'm mad at him. Some days I'm like, what gives, dude? Why aren't you listening to me?
Right.
Why am I in such pain today?
Where are you in this? Yeah.
Yeah. And other days I'm like, oh man, did you ever show up at the right time? So, if we're always focused on ourselves, then you do become selfish. You do become the center of the universe. Yeah. And I'll give you an example. I mentioned it just this morning as I walked out the door. I said to my wife, Andrea, I said, back in the early days of my consulting, you were there helping me set up the stupid chairs. You were putting the binders together. You were printing the materials. You were loading the books on the tables. You were pouring the ice water, bringing in the ice. You were setting up the registration table. You had all the name tags organized for me, all printed out, ready to go. I never once said thank you.
Today you realize this.
I said, I can't believe I didn't thank you. Because when I really look back at that, I was so preoccupied with me and my performance and my deliverables and doing a great job. Again, all about me aware, not other aware.
Right.
That I missed it.
Oh.
And I thanked her. I said, and I could give you 50 other examples of how you did that. She did that for me.
Sacrifice, love. Yeah.
And she did it because it was important to the business. And she knew and she had seen and heard the message. She wanted the message to get through to these folks that I was training.
She knew you were helping people, that you were serving people.
You got to pay attention to those things. And those are the things that I didn't do well in my younger go-go years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really stop and think about those things now. There are moments that happen in life that for me anyway, that do change you. But it's a process. The true change takes time, but there's moments where the change process begins. Okay, that's been my experience. One of them was in the mid 90s when my son was a football player, good athlete, and I was coaching a 7th grade football team. And it was during the time of rebuilding my business when business was a mess. We were trying to dig our way out. It was pretty scary. We didn't have a lot of resources, money at the time, but I felt some momentum and I felt a little mojo coming back. And so I had this 7th grade football team. And what I loved about it was I could leave the office, grab my whistle and my clipboard and my plays and my tackling dummies and my orange cones, and I could set up the field and I could play football with these kids. And I don't know what, 12 years old, I guess, in the 7th grade, right? Trying to be men.
Maybe 13 going on 14-ish. Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah.
And they're all trying to be men. They want to be football players and they don't have a clue and they're goofy. And I was their coach. And Dave was the assistant coach, and he was a good guy. He wasn't a very good coach, but he was a really good guy. And I really enjoyed having him there to support me in the effort. But there was a young boy by the name of George Morey who was on the team. His father came late to the first practice. The kids were all huddled, ready to go. I was going to put them on their first lap, and here comes the car, and George Sr. gets out, opens up the door for George Jr. And God bless this young 12-year-old boy. He was probably 60 pounds overweight. He could barely move. His dad had to escort him down the grade to get down to the practice field where we were. And I could hear the boys going, "Oh, God, we got George Morey on our team." And I looked at him like, "Fellas, knock it off." So his father came up to me, looked me in the eye and said, "We've done all we can do. Let's see what you can do." And he left. And
dropped him off.
Here was this kid standing there, and I thought, "Oh my God, what am I going to do with him?" And he was packed into this football uniform. He could barely move. God bless him.
So he got all packed in before he came. His dad dropped him off.
Oh man! Yeah. And so, and I could see it in his eyes. I was looking right into the face of rust out at 12, and I thought, I got to do something. So I said, "George, have you ever played football before?" "No, coach." "Are you willing to learn?" "Yes, sir. I'm willing to learn." "Okay." So I said, "You're going to be my starting defensive tackle. We have a game in 2 weeks. You better get ready." And with that, I saw these eyes light up like I've never seen before. I went from rust out to hope.
Like, you mean me? You're talking to me?
Talking to me.
Yeah.
This kid couldn't run a lap. He couldn't get in a 3-point stance. He couldn't do a push-up. But every day at practice, I see him. He got better and better and better and better. We taught him to just fall down. He plug up the whole left-hand side. I mean, you couldn't get a play on the left side.
I mean, there you go.
Yeah. So it was hysterical but the kids, we had to do the laps together. You had to finish together. It was a 6-to-1 ratio. Keep going, guys. George isn't done yet. And they were like resenting
just
George.
To get through the one. Yeah.
So we'd end on time. I said, we end as a team. So we were in great shape, but I watched this kid get better. And I used to do the decals where if you get a tackle or an interception, you get a decal.
Yeah.
Like Woody Hayes back in the Ohio State days. So he never got one. He never earned one. We had integrity about it. I didn't want to give him away for free.
Right.
They were like,
you had to work for it. Yeah, earn it.
But he would stand there and hold. Chris Moore was our running back. Chris Moore would score like 4 touchdowns a game. The guy was insane. He went to St. John's and was an NCAA record setter there.
Gosh.
Magnificent athlete. He'd be an NFL player if he were bigger. That's how good he was.
Wow. But
he'd have like so many stickers that it would take an hour to put his stickers on. George would hold his helmet and put his stickers on for him. We did it on Monday nights after the weekend because the games were on Saturdays. I thought, you talk about servant leadership. You talk about a kid that's invested.
Yeah.
And then he'd go to your helmet and he'd go to that guy's helmet and he'd help him. This kid didn't have one decal.
Oh my!
We went 7-0. This team was unstoppable, And I'll never forget it. We were in the championship game, and I thought we got a minute left. We're down by 2 because it was 14-12. You ran in the extra point. I said, we're going to lose this thing. How do we get out of time? So I grabbed the first jersey. It was George's. He didn't even play offense. I said, take these 3 plays in. He was the smartest kid on the team. Takes the 3 plays in, and they spiked the ball on the 6-yard line. Stop the clock. We got like 6 seconds left. True story. I'm thinking and all the other games are done. It's the jamboree, so 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. They're all done. There's like 400 people standing around watching this thing. And I'm like in a panic. What do I do now? So I go out there, and there's these kids in this huddle looking to me. Give us the answer, coach. Right? And there's moments of leadership where you've got to have an answer. Mm. You don't hesitate. You could be wrong, but you've got to move, right? Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, we're going to run the T41 counter. Chad, make your block. Hergot, make the cut. We'll be fine. We got 6 yards. We can do this. Hergot gets slammed. It's like watching slow motion. And the ball spits out and bounces and rolls into the end zone, into the arms of George Morey, who was laying on his back. And the ball literally went thump.
Right into his hands, right into the breadbasket.
So George scores the winning touchdown in the championship game in front of 400 people. It was pandemonium.
No kidding.
And then they tried to carry him off the field,
As a team?
So, yeah, exactly. So I'll never forget that. That was such a moment of change. And I talk about it oftentimes with my customers about the lessons that are packed into that. Mm. There's so many.
Yeah.
And then this kid went on to have a brilliant career. I believe he got his medical degree, and he was an orthopedic surgeon. I think he worked on athletes, if I'm not mistaken. He's like 6'2", 6'3", skinny. Just boom. It flipped his life.
Right.
And it flipped mine, because here was this burned out coach with a rusted out kid, and we were both in the mess together almost, and we kind of saved each other in a funny kind of way,
So cool.
So I think that, the Lord saved us, and he gave us a lot of tools and talents and capabilities to help save each other.
Yeah, that's great.
By just being graceful.
So personally, in that, you obviously are reflecting on, being a coach in a timing where maybe it wasn't as exciting for you wanting to be there, but it was what you had to do as a dad. I don't know.
Yeah, kind of. Well, actually, Josh, it was the place. That was my happy place.
That was the happy
place.
The
office was not the happy place.
Okay, so your outlet.
Yeah, it was a place for me to take my energies and my talents and just give it to some kids.
Yeah, wow.
And have it make a difference for them. Because I remember being a kid myself, and I had my football uniform, and my dad used to come watch practices, and there was playing football in youth football, CYO, Czech Catholic Youth Organization. That was a big deal for me, and I was good. I was a good player, and I remember that. And I remember being a kid, and I thought, I'm going to help these kids.
So good. So thinking about, that season of your career, though, that was on the back half had the exit already happened? Or at that point,
no,
you were escaping work because that was your happy place. Where were you at then?
The business was coming out of it.
Yeah, coming out of it.
But not back on its feet yet. And things were tight and tense. And I had suffered some betrayals from some employees that did some things that were very, very unscrupulous. And that was a time of suffering. Because you're just like, God, I can't believe they did that to me. But things happen like that in business, and you have to be tough and get through it. But people do funny things, and I'm guilty of my own. Mm-hmm. But those are the things that you learn. And, eventually, though, if you, a business team, I think requires a leader that can paint a vision clearly for everybody to see. We're not there yet, but this is where I want to go. this is what I see. This is what we have potential of being when we get there. Can you help me? So it's almost an enrollment in that vision.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody gets to share in that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think in terms of your life and in your faith, when did you begin to feel like the Lord was bringing that vision into really going all in for him in your life in that season? Where did the reliance upon him really, like George, the transition, the change, the aha, for him. But for you, obviously you needed each other to have that sentiment, it sounds like, but to come out of that season and to become the man you are now from a faith point of view, was there something that stood out to you through that tough season that really brought you closer to him? Or when for you did that really become, your mission to discover a new Mike?
It's a staircase. It ebbs and flows. So moments like George were a grace moment, a God moment that I didn't fully see, but I felt it.
I see.
Later on in life, when I sold my business, I put my fat cat hat back on, had all this money, only to realize that can be lost too.
Yeah.
It's just money, know, and it's not who you are. And so that was another moment, I would say 2002, 2003, kind of post sale when I hit the lottery ticket. Those were bittersweet. Wow, why don't I feel better? I got all this dough.
Fulfillment, the lack thereof. Yeah.
I'm bored. I feel unprepared for the rest of my life about what it's going to look like. I kind of don't know myself anymore without my mojo going.
Your identity was wrapped up in that
so much.
Yeah.
Too much, So you kind of go through some droughts, and that was another bounce that I had to make. Where disillusionment set in. So I had to kind of work my way through that. And then I would say even as recent as COVID times, where we were all kind of hit with this, wow, what happened to our world?
Right.
And what does this mean? And why all this self-promotion that you see everywhere? And what does that mean? And why is there such a gap? Why is this country so broken? Why? And so you go through a period of, what's it all about, Alfie?
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
So it ebbs and flows.
Yeah. Right.
But I do think that what I can tell you for sure is when I ask for help from God, he doesn't give me the answers many times right there on the spot, but he keeps showing up. The deal I needed badly in order to get my business restarted after COVID showed up. It showed up in spades, and it kept showing up.
Yeah.
The energy I needed in order to pull that off showed up. The book I needed to write, I wrote it. I mean, I ask for his grace and his help and his guidance, and then I'm a little bit better at listening to the answer.
I get that. But as you're processing, when you're asking, and as he shows up, how do you keep yourself in check in that area of pride that you mentioned or recall struggling with? As it was me that did this, even though the reliance was on God at some point, right?
At some point you realize it just wasn't. He's there all the time, right next to you, looking at some days going, oh man, what am I going to do with this guy? It's like, when are you going to figure this out?
Yeah.
And there's other days where, okay, I like what I'm seeing here. Let's keep going.
Right.
And then he builds strength within you. That's his Holy Spirit.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then all of a sudden it's like, I think you're starting to get it, Mike. And that's that final conversion, conviction, belief, deepening of faith, restoration of my soul, restoration of my self-esteem, my ability to cope with life. It gets easier when God's in there.
For sure. I agree with that.
The crap still hits the fan, but it gets easier to deal with.
And as you've gone through then the journey, both in the ups and downs, and then transition even to the solopreneur and author and sales trainer, how have you seen those convictions by God's grace show up in the way that you lead these groups and the work you do now? How is it being incorporated?
Oh, man, that's really a great question. I would say the last 10 years probably have been really close to what I want my consulting practice to be. Whereas the first 10 was, I did a good job. There was a good value, but the motivation behind it was still a little bit too me. You with me?
Yeah, totally.
But now, I just got a call the other day. Well, not the other day. It was maybe 6 months ago. We started a dialogue. This is a great client, 13, 14-year client. He came to as a guest to one of my training seminars for sales teams. And he came up to me afterwards. He says, I need to know more about this. And we built a relationship and we talked, and I shared with him kind of my journey. And so it was a deep connection. He was there an hour and a half, but something sparked him, and it started a 13-year relationship. And I've helped him with strategy. I've helped him with sales training. I've been brought in on special projects to help nurture brand new organizations that he wanted to build within his team. They were probably a $120 million company out of Manhattan at the time. A bunch of Italian guys owned it. And they're so funny because everything they talk with their hands and they're so passionate. And I just love these guys. Yeah. My wife loves them. It's like, I love those guys. The people from New York, what you see is what you get. So he called 6 months ago and he says, I think we're ready to do something. I said, what's been going on? I've lost touch. He said, well, private equity came in, bought us out. And I said, I knew that. And he says, yeah, we're growing like crazy. They're $1 billion company today.
Oh my gosh. And
he's running this thing. But he's the same Chris. He's the same guy I knew 13 years ago. Smarter, been through a lot, done a lot. But his passion for, I got a new team. These are the future leaders. I want to shape them. I want them to see the vision. I want them to understand what it takes to run a business. I want them to, that is so fulfilling. And he trusts me, And so I've come to the conclusion now that some people, some don't.
Yeah.
Some will, some won't.
Yeah.
Some can, some can't. Some will like you, some won't like you. Yeah. Some will hire you, some won't hire. I used to worry about it.
Yeah.
I don't anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. You show up with what he's given you, given the opportunity you have to do your best and glorify him.
And it gets blessed.
Right.
And when the motivation is correct, it gets blessed.
What I think is incredible, though, in all of this is just how he's used you in business and in sales and relationships. And it seems like there's never been this, because I think many folks often turn to God when they fall off the cliff, right? When they fall down the stairs. But that staircase, that tried and true growth comes from, the desire to grow closer to him. But sounds like through his provision and the way he's blessed you has continued to just turn on light bulbs in these smaller ways. But have you had to develop disciplines or habits for yourself to really make a cognizant effort to show love in the workplace, to your wife, to your kids, to your grandkids?
And I still am working at it.
Yeah. What gets you hung up these days?
Not as much.
Yeah.
But pride is my problem. I've been given a lot of natural gifts and talents. I've been a good athlete. I've been, this whole thing of compete. I watch these, we're going through the playoffs right now, and it's fascinating. I watch Mahomes and some of these Stafford and some of these quarterbacks, and they're so talented and so gifted and so passionate about what they're doing.
Right.
And you got to give them credit.
Right.
They're doing a great job.
For sure.
But I sit there and I ask myself, do they know the Lord? And do they realize where all that talent came from? And how lucky and blessed and fortunate that they are.
Yeah.
And I'm often reminded about all the misery that's still in this world.
100%.
It's 15 below zero outside today. And there's people with no home. and no clothes.
Dying right now without it.
Yeah, and suffering.
Yeah.
And what are we doing about it? And I know I can't. So that's where I'm just grateful that I've got this guy called Jesus Christ who said, you know what? You've made such a mess of it. This isn't the way I wanted it.
Right.
So I'm going to come down as your God, and I'm going to be born into this world, and I'm going to live amongst you, and I'm going to show you how to do this.
I'm going to show you. Yeah.
And it works.
And that's the thing. That's it. And we get so hung up on, the religion aspect, and at the end of the day,
that's a man-made potion.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And in the Catholics, I love the Catholic faith, and I'll never abandon it, but I see it for what it is.
Yeah.
There's some parts that's like, oh, brother.
Well, the rituals and the rules, right?
But dogma and all the baloney.
But the relationship piece is, understanding when he came here and how he lived is the model that
Christian model
we failed to see in our own fathers. We failed to be as a father. We failed to be as a husband. And I'm often reminded of that too. Like, okay, I am blessed. I have 5 children. I've had some business success, but what am I doing with it? Like you're saying about Mahomes. And so, as you think about that and what he's given you and your talents, to be 71 and still serving men, I mean, you're actively working, you're actively writing and adding value to life, right? You're have more time, probably. We have the same amount of time, but your time is more valuable to really consider how you're investing it.
Well, I don't have as much.
Well,
so I got some catching up to do still, and so I feel a real responsibility today to not go, conversations with my friends. Well, but are we going to be in Florida for 6 months, or are we going to be in Arizona?
Exactly.
Come on. There's more to life than that.
Well, James talks about, we plan to go do business and here or there and stay there for a year, and we'll make business and great things will happen. But, Scripture reminds us that we're not promised tomorrow. What are we doing today?
Yeah, that's all you get. That's all you get. And so I love nice things. I like to drive a nice car. I like to wear nice clothing. I like all the same things anybody that is out there likes. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
You can be a billionaire with or without faith. Nothing wrong with that.
That's right. And so, but it comes back to the heart, and it comes back to pride, and it comes back to selfishness. And so today I try to start each day with, Lord, just be in the day with me. Don't abandon me.
Yeah.
Stick by my side. So I'm more discerning. I'm more vocal about what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I ask for help where I used to think I got this. I'm more vulnerable and willing to be so. And I'm not afraid to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Christ was so vulnerable everywhere he went.
The church isn't for healthy people. It's for the sick, and, honestly, when we recognize and openly talk about our struggles and challenges, it opens doors for others to share. More recently, I've had several men say, I've never shared this with anyone before. And it started by me just talking about my struggles. And I think, especially growing up and seeing the stigmas of men, around feelings and emotion and vulnerability, to be able to adapt and learn that and bring that upon is a God thing, is a Jesus modeling thing. And,
you got to work
hard every day, but
you got to work
when you're not in the Word each day, when you're not in prayer each day, very, very slightly we're slow fading, from Him. And so that reminder just each day when you start your day, is so much more powerful than just waking up saying, I'm going to go get it.
Go through the motions. Yeah. And, I like to have fun. It's I don't have to be a monk and go with a cave and a rice bowl somewhere and live that way. It's okay to be out there and have a good time.
Yeah.
To have nice things, to aspire to
100%.
do more, to compete. Those are good things.
Yeah. It's awesome. I think the perception of wealth too, as a scripture, I believe in Proverbs, that, the Lord's blessings will make one person rich, but He adds no trouble to it. And the idea of that, you can't be wealthy as a believer clearly is a misconception. But I think the question is really, what are we doing with it?
Absolutely. Because believe me, we're going to take our last breath.
100%. Yeah.
And that money is not going to be worth anything.
Incredible. Well, thanks so much for driving up, hanging out with me, and dealing with a few technical issues, but working through it. I hope that leg heals. And
yeah, it's getting better by the day. So,
what are you doing to stay active when you're not nursing an ankle?
Well, I'm a golfer, so I got to work on the legs.
We're in the off season now.
Yeah, we'll have to get back in the gym and tidy things up for the spring.
So we're not seeing you in Florida playing pickleball and golf there?
Not this year. Okay. Yeah, we got to heal up a little bit. But no, we're going to take a trip probably. And my wife's going to go down and spend some time with a friend in Florida for a week, and she'll get a nice break there. And then the two of us are going to head to, we're not sure yet, but we got a couple spots that we love.
That's great.
Either in Florida or Mexico in March.
You're getting me excited about the warmth already. Great. Well, thanks so much again, Mike, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Absolutely.
Hey, this is an episode of Successfully Unsuccessful. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.